right, welcome everybody. What's up, everybody? I am Baron Baptiste. This is a show for disrupting the drift. I am here with my friend, my co-host here on Disrupting the Drift, David Masters. Please make sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications to this channel, share the show, leave a 5-star review of the show. Or if you're on YouTube, like the show. We drop a couple episodes each week now on YouTube at Baron Baptiste. If you have questions, send them to disruptingthedrift at baronbaptiste.com. David, how are you? How's it going?
It's going amazing. And I want to say about your YouTube channel,
Yeah,
absolutely impressive. The way that the little drop downs and the little pop ups are, it just really helps to clarify what it is that's being discussed. It's just great. I'm just saying, people, if you haven't seen it, got to go see it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I'll take it. Yeah, very good. So there's this article you brought forward. I think it has a depth of humanity in here, something we all as human beings and in the human condition deal with. And it's the subject of guilt.
Yeah.
And so Governor Gassam, he's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Governor Gavin Newsom's wife. So the governor of California. Oh man, it's so like that though. Okay. And we just can't help but tell the truth around here, man.
Newsom.
Yeah. He'll gas them one way or the other, man. That guy seems to be gassing all of California in not a good way.
That's right.
Governor Gavin Newsom's wife reveals she killed her sister during a family vacation. Gavin Newsom's wife has come clean about her older sister's death. Jennifer Siebel Newsom killed her sibling, Stasia, by running her over in a golf cart when they were children. So RadarOnline.com revealed that his wife, 48, so this is Gavin Newsom's wife, 48 years old, said her sister's death occurred in 1981 during a family vacation in Hawaii. Several children had been playing on golf buggies when Jennifer reversed her vehicle, not realizing Stasia was hiding behind her cart. She ran her sister over, killing her. Newsom's wife was only 6 years old. Wow. Revealing the accident happened days before her 7th birthday. Jennifer tried to be perfect growing up, hoping she could make up for her sister's accidental death. I felt, and this is in quotes, she said, I felt the pressure to be perfect, to make my parents forget by being 2 daughters instead of 1, she told the outlet, adding she still struggles over the trauma from the incident. Wow, this is very deep and profound, right? How an incident in life, and at 6 years old, forms our whole identity, our whole way of being in life, our way of going through life, managing perceptions of how people view us in life. And from such a young age, it completely changes the trajectory of one's life with these kinds of experiences or an incident like this. And I think most of us have had maybe not this type of incident. I think obviously many people have. I have not, but I think most people have had by degree different levels of either traumatic experiences or experiences that had a real impact on us and formed us or outformed us from the direction we were going into, our kind of the path we would have been on, and put us in a whole different kind of direction and pathway and identity. David, one thing that jumps out to me here in this is where she said, I felt the pressure to be perfect, to make my parents forget by being 2 daughters instead of 1. Like, I almost want to start with the end of that statement, that by being 2 daughters instead of 1. What do you think she meant? I mean, I'll just say what's here for me in the immediate sense is 2 daughters and said, well, one daughter is, okay, she's being herself, the person before the incident, before that trauma or traumatic experience. There's that person, that daughter, and then there's the one who attempts to be perfect, to make up for the wrong, to make up for something she did that she shouldn't have done, even though it was a total accident, but yet she became a different person. What do you see about this? Super curious.
Yeah, I think that the being two daughters means that what she tried to do is she tried to present both for herself and for her sister.
Mm.
And if you can imagine, I don't know if you've ever seen
Mm.
somebody who is a perfectionist, and then when somebody is doing something, they jump in front of them and try to get it done better because it's not being done well enough. Well, that's a dual personality that exists in that poor woman who is suffering from this trauma, that she's being herself and then she's trying to be even better than herself by being a second incarnation of another person. And that's a terrible, terrible sentence to live under,
A burden.
because you
Yeah.
can't do it. It's not even possible.
Yeah.
You'll just wear yourself out. And I would fear for her, because if I was Gavin Newsom, I would tell her, look, um, you didn't know you were 6 years old. You didn't know what you didn't even know she was there. I would get her into therapy. I mean, some seriously good therapy, but maybe the therapy is the reason why she's still hanging on to it. I don't know. But guilt, that kind of guilt is a bag of bricks, and you're going to drag it around your whole life. And one day it's going to drop you. It's going to
Yeah,
pull you to the
there's
ground.
there's something to me here. So I get that the two daughters, in that she was attempting to be herself as daughter,
Yep.
as Jennifer as daughter, and then Stasia, if I'm pronouncing the name properly,
Yep.
but that her sister, the one she kills, she was attempting to be that daughter as well, to somehow fill in the loss that her parents were experiencing. That's a big burden to carry, if you think about it. And then how many of us, in different ways, shapes, forms, are living these kind of two lives. Like we're being an identity, a person for our parents, to please our parents, to get our parents' approval, or another persona to be kind of fit in with the crowd, fit in with the friends, fit in with peers or the cool kids, to fit into society. Different masks where we're almost in a masquerade of sorts, where we're putting on different masks, different costumes, a different persona for different people. And inside of that, we lose ourselves. We're in the experience of having lost ourselves. And then in that space of having lost ourselves rises up guilt, blame, the black hole of shame. Nothing good comes out of that. And then the experience of regret at a certain point in life, having lived life long enough, not being yourself, actually who you actually are, not being that self, having lost yourself for long enough, you then are burdened down with the weight of regret. And in regret, there's resentment, there's judgment, there's bitterness, there's blame, there's fault, all of that kind of the bricks, so to speak, piling on inside of our chest, rubbing against each other. And then what we're left with at the end of life or later in life is just a chest full of rock dust or brick dust from rocks rubbing together inside of our inside of ourselves, so to speak.
Well, think about
Mm-hmm.
being married to somebody like that who carries forward that idea of being perfect. That becomes, in my opinion, for Gavin Newsom, that becomes a Stepford wife. She's going to do everything in her power to get that love and attention from the people in her world for doing everything so perfectly well. And again, that's like a death sentence. I'm going to tell you, nobody can be perfect. It just doesn't exist in this world. And yet, when people encourage that, and I'm sure that that's encouraged by Gassam, because I love that name, Gassam. I'm sure that he loves her for that endless effort for her to make him happy and be perfect. But I want to go back to the scene of the crime because, if you're a parent who has a connection with your children, let's say your child gets killed by another child by accident. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? I'll tell you what comes to my mind. Oh my God, my child is dead, but I've got one that's living, and I want to make sure that child does not live with that stigma. That would be the first thing that I would think of, and I'd pick up that child, and I would say to that child, it's not your fault. You didn't know that she was there, and I love you, and I don't want you to feel terrible about this because it was an accident. And I would reinforce the positive to that little 6-year-old child that was about to turn 7. I would grieve over the one that was dead. I can guarantee you that those parents, the first thing they did was they showed a great amount of, I can't even say the word, but disappointment or terror. And they looked, and that terror was shown on their faces. And that little child who didn't
Mm-hmm.
know that she had even done this looked at those
Mm-hmm.
parents and said, I'm never going to live this down. This is the rest of my life. I'm going to be living the rest of my life trying to make up for this terrible thing that happened. That's what the first thing that child was going to think.
Oh yeah, that's very wow. Wow, very good point because little kids take everything as on their own. Like everything's my fault.
Yep.
Everything I'm the center of what happens. I'm the center of the universe.
Yep.
Whether you hurt someone or you do something you shouldn't have done or your parents divorce or it's automatically I'm to blame and it's my fault. I mean, it's just how kids are wired up. It's just
Yep.
very kind of egocentric, right? So it's like to see that on their parents' face, whatever the experience was, and understandably so, but by the shock of the parents, but somewhere in there, the dismissiveness, even just by default, if that child was somehow in that moment forgotten, you become the forgotten child, and that child that was just lost its life becomes what's remembered. You become forgotten and just emotionally forgotten, energetically
Yeah.
forgotten, dismissed
Yep.
in that moment. That right there changes your whole trajectory. I don't know anything about this woman, Gavin Newsom's wife. I've no knowledge of her other than she's a politician's wife. So I don't know what her family background is. If her families were politicians or what that background is. But in a way, it's a perfect fit that she's married to a politician like
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom.
Yep.
Just shiny used car salesman,
Yep.
slick back hair. All the public perception is so perfect, shiny, that politician and that plastic politician image that it's kind of how people that have lived like what would you call like outformed lives
Mm-hmm.
dependent
Mm-hmm.
on perceptions, how people see me to make up for something, and
Yeah.
guilt, driven by guilt, and
Yep.
but purely not being themselves and purely putting up masters of projecting an image, projecting a perfect perception. Like she said, I've been trying to be the perfect child, 2
Mm-hmm.
daughters, a perfect and addicted to perfection. Well, I mean, of course you're going to end up a perfect candidate to be either a politician's wife or just to be in that political game. Period. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
politicians are, as real as generally as real as a piece of plastic. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense how you end up there. Yeah.
From my experience, because I'm one of those children that had a terrible accident when I was almost 4 years old, I cut off a big portion of one of my fingers while I was playing with my bicycle. Um,
Ouch. Did it
yeah.
hurt?
Oh, yes, it did. But here's the important thing. The important thing to I want people to understand is that I was not capable of understanding what had happened. And
Mm.
so to me it was just another accident because kids cut themselves and they fall and they scrape their knees and all. It was just another thing that happened until I went running to my mom and I said, I'm hurt. And my mom turned white.
Mm.
My mom literally turned white and she froze.
Mm.
And so what happened with me is that I took my reaction of how bad it was from my mother, because until that time, I just thought it was another cut. I just thought
Mm-hmm.
it was another thing, right?
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
mother transmitted the shock into me,
Mm.
and then that damaged me.
Her
And
emotional shock,
her
her
emotional shock
reaction.
damaged me.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, it didn't turn me into a mama's boy where I would go to my mom, "Can I do this, mommy? Mommy, look at me, look at me." I actually went the other direction. I thought, okay, I've survived this. I pretty much think I can survive things that are worse than this. So I was a pretty
Mm-hmm.
self-destructive person, but I didn't want to feel that feeling, that oppressive feeling of fear, and of, the shock of anxiety, which makes you wonder if you can do the next thing. I didn't want that, even when I was 4 or 5 years old. My point about Gavin Newsom's wife is that that child at the age of 6 or 7 years old was not capable of coming to a conclusion about what happened. It was That conclusion was given to them, to that child, from those parents. And you can just
Right.
tell that the parents didn't deal with it well. You can just tell.
Right. Right.
My mom didn't deal with me well, and it actually turned me into a more dangerous person, a person that
Yeah.
was more self-destructive.
How were you self-destructive?
I just did crazy things. I was always getting hurt when I was a kid. I was always doing stuff that I was putting myself at risk when I was a kid. I felt
Mm-hmm.
that I was almost indestructible. Look at my finger. See, I lost that. Wait, what else can I lose? That was my weird attitude about it. But I'm so glad that I didn't turn into a mommy, look at me, mommy, watch me, mommy, follow me, mommy,
You're
protect me,
almost
mommy.
too. You're almost too good at that imitation.
Yeah.
You sure you know that you're not the double daughter syndrome,
No,
the
I'm not.
double son syndrome?
I'm just a hot mess like everybody else. But I figured a few things out in my life. That's what I. But with my kids, when things would happen, I would remain calm,
Yeah.
and I would collect myself before expressing anything. It was almost like a scientific experiment. Like I would look at it to see what the best thing to do was. Because the best thing that could have been done for me was my mom could have got, "Okay, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine." She could have reassured me, right? She could have made me feel at ease about it. But what I felt was absolute sheer terror, because I didn't understand how to interpret that from my mom at that time. See, it was a terrible terror thing for me. So, and it also caused me not to listen to my mom, because when people react badly to things, after a while you become numb to their reactions. Like, okay, I've been here, I've seen this before.
Mm.
They're going to overreact. No matter what happens, they're going to overreact. I just didn't care. I got to a point where I didn't care what anybody said. I didn't care how anybody reacted. And then I went into a state of avoidance, because I didn't want to hear about what anybody else had to say about things.
Yeah.
And I was dumped on a lot because I was the oldest kid. I was the oldest of 5 kids. I was the experimental guinea pig. I made all the mistakes.
Yeah.
And all the kids learned not to be like me. So.
And you learned how to not be like you too.
I learned how to be not like me too after a while. Yeah. It took me a few years.
I mean, I think any of us on a growth trajectory, a growth and an evolution, a spiritual evolution, kind of path, we learn how to not be the original. We come back to the original self,
the guinea pig self,
the one that, we unlearn. We unlearn a self to come back to the original self, in a sense.
That's right.
The one that was forgotten, and the one that got split along the way. And like Gavin Newsom's wife became two people, two daughters instead of one.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting question as we're talking through this. So look, I don't know anything about Gavin Newsom's wife.
I don't either.
Again, but nothing. And they're dealing, but it's interesting. She's coming clean about having killed her sister. I mean, that's brutal for anybody. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And then, but I'm curious the way out. So to me, what's here for me is almost what Jesus, would speak to around forgiveness. like because to me there's something about regret that has to do with judgment against yourself,
Yes.
judgment against oneself, resentment toward self, or just regret is judgment towards self, and maybe it's infused with resentment in there, but it's the only way out, whether it's toward yourself regret or toward another, a judgment toward another human being, would be through forgiveness. Forgiveness as the way out, because there, in that, you have, in forgiveness, you have to sacrifice pride, you have to sacrifice ego, you have to give up all and every one of your opinions, about yourself or about that situation or about the other person. Or it really, there's a level of humility that comes with true forgiveness, as I see it. You forfeit your right to be resentful or judgmental in forgiveness, whether for yourself, against yourself or another. You forfeit your right to hold something against yourself. The sword you're holding over another is actually, you're holding a sword over your own head, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know any other way. I'm just saying it in my own experience. I've had plenty of therapists over the years, and talk therapy, and it's helpful, but it doesn't, to me, at all replace a bigger spiritual context for life, an outlook for life, and having faith in something greater than yourself. Talk therapy is good, just like physical therapy is good for the body. I mean, talk therapy and kind of air out things, and maybe, like that, but nothing replaces the inner work, the true work of forgiveness. To me, that's in the realm of your spiritual being. What do you see about this, like forgiveness as a way out? Or where do you see, again, not knowing anything about this Gavin Newsom's wife, but as more of a unit, from a universal standpoint, how does one get out of this?
From a universal standpoint, we have to do a vision quest. And I know that the American Indians go into a sweat lodge and they look for a
Mm-hmm.
spirit guide to show them, a path. But we don't really need that. I'm just using that as a metaphor. The vision quest would be whether or not somebody like Jennifer Newsom could know that her sister is in heaven. Because if you can imagine, see, she feels that her sister can't forgive her because she's not here. Her sister's life was taken, and she feels that she can never be forgiven because her sister can never forgive her. But at the same time, a person like that potentially could be shown that I think that a lot of this has to do with whether or not you believe in God, because there is perfect cosmic justice in everything. Okay. And the accidental death of a sibling, which happens pretty much every day somewhere in the world all day long, there are moments in time where we have to step back far enough to realize that if that sister could, would she forgive? Would she forgive? Would she want her sister to go on living that double life? Would she want her sister to feel that she has to be perfect? In a spiritual sense, if it was possible for a person to have this vision, to know, you see, that they don't have to keep on judging themselves. But I don't think a person that doesn't believe in a cosmic scale of justice can have that. So they live on a linear basis, trying to make up for the things that they can never make up for. You can't make up for a taken life. I mean, our society is very casual about people being murdered these days. In
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, people are murdered, every 15 or 20 people murdered every weekend. And yes, there's pain and there's suffering and there's
every, every,
wailing.
every day of the week, actually.
Yeah, every day of the
Yeah.
week. And so people are killed in
Yeah.
these major cities, and the
Yeah.
families have to suffer for the rest of their lives. And the court system is very casual about it. It's like, okay, there's another murder, but everybody's got to make sense of these things.
Yeah.
And for this particular sad woman, if she could just see that she is not being held to guilt, that she's holding herself to guilt.
Yeah.
And
No
if
one
she
else on
knew
the
the
planet,
truth, it
no
would
one
set her
else on the
free.
planet is
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. The
exactly.
truth would set her free. And
Yeah.
part of the a truth is that, or I don't know if it's a truth or is it the truth, but is that really she's not held to account
No,
for that accident. It's a
no,
terrible accident,
terrible.
tragic accident.
Yeah,
Wouldn't wish that on anyone. Shouldn't happen to anyone. And certain things that shouldn't happen do happen. But yet, the truth is, at the end of the day, it's not her account.
no,
She's not held to account.
no.
It's not her accountability. But there is an accountability to forgive and to recognize the truth. If you can hold yourself to account in truth, there is a way out. But if you only hold yourself to account or accountable to the guilt, then you stay in that prism, that prison that's a prism, where all you see reflect back is guilt.
Yeah, and I like to watch these true crime shows like on A&E and Investigation Discovery. But a lot of these people who lost family members and children, particularly, not a lot of them, but some of them who have a Christian belief system, literally in the courtroom will go up to the murderer and tell them that they forgive them for what they did
Yeah,
and
yeah, you
hug
see that.
them. But the person they're setting free is themselves. And the reason they have to forgive those
Mm,
people, they see it in their own mind, because otherwise those people are going to kill them slowly throughout the course
mm-hmm.
of their life through hatred, through
Right.
blame, through negative emotions. And if you want to live, you've got to let go of the terrible things that have happened, because those terrible things will become your terrible things.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the story of there were two veterans from, I think it was the Korean War. Was that in the 1940s, that war, the Korean War?
1950s, yeah.
50s, yeah.
Yeah.
And there were two veterans. They hadn't seen each other. So these two veterans, there was a reunion. They hadn't seen each other in like 50 years
Mhm.
since they were in camp together. They saw each other at this event. The one vet walks up to another and said, oh, it's so good to see you, my friend. And, have you forgiven our captors, the
Yeah.
Koreans who tortured us and tormented us for months and years, and have you forgiven them? And the response from the other vet was like, no way, I will never forgive them for what they did
Mhm.
to us.
Mhm.
I will never forgive them. And then the first vet responded by saying, well, you're still in prison, my friend.
Yes.
You're still in
Yes.
the prison of your own
Yeah.
mind. And I'm sure all those players, all those people that tortured them in the prisons, all those the players in that scene that did physical and true harm to them are probably all long gone and dead, and or they're old men at that point, and nothing to do with their lives anymore. But it really does, to your point, these our lack of forgiveness, that bitterness, that resentment, that fault, blame that we hold over another, that sword we hold over another, in essence, is exactly what we're holding
Mhm.
over ourselves. And again,
Mhm.
it's that carrying around blocks and bricks and rocks in your chest, and those rocks are just grinding against each other in your chest, and you end up in end of life just full of rock dust, and it's all you've got, and you're still in the prison of your own mind, or the prison of whatever happened years ago. And just to forgive it, to move on, is a gift only you can give yourself. And that's the gift that is given from your creator. That's between you and your creator. Period. End of story. You don't like it, then yeah, keep what you've got, but also keep the results of it, the
Well,
impact of it.
I want to
Yeah.
add one thing, and that is that terrible things have been done to me. And but when I remember, if I choose to remember, and I just read an article that says that you can actually choose to let go. It takes some work, but you can actually choose to let go of things that don't need to be in your mind. You just have to identify the things that you don't want to have in your mind anymore, and then watch as they start to kind of creep up on you. But if I want to remember terrible things that have happened to me, let's just, for example, I had a 2.5 hour surgery to remove a melanoma cancer. I can remember that, but I have no feeling about it. And so what the perfecting of the self has to do with learning how to look at these things that reoccur. And you talked about resentment. The word resentment actually comes from resenter in the Latin, I believe it is, or the French, means to feel again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if things come up, you get a chance to look at it again and look at it objectively, though, rather than subjectively. You get to look at it and say, you know what? I'm done with that. I don't
Yeah.
need that anymore, and let it go. And one of these times when you see it and you detach from the feelings that you have around it, that might be the time it never comes back.
Yeah.
But see, so there are reasons why we have reoccurring thoughts about certain things, especially terrible things that happen. But it's also an ability to get closure by letting it go and by saying it no longer serves me in any way, shape, or form. I don't need it. I don't feel guilty about it anymore. I'm not going to feel guilty about it anymore. I've had millions of guilt trips laid on me in my life, and I don't have any need for guilt. I know what's right and wrong. I know what I've done and what I haven't done. And so when things come to me and people try to make me feel guilty or whatever, I don't have any feelings about it. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
when
so
you're
good.
free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know it, right? You know, like just nothing. You
Yeah.
could be anywhere with anyone in any situation, and it just doesn't get you. It
Yeah.
just doesn't grab you. The era of taking things personally for you is over.
Done.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Thank
Amen.
God.
Amen. Amen.
Right? Walk in a lightness of being because
Yep.
they just can't, yeah, things just can't get you, can't grab you, hook you. You don't have a goat to get, so you don't get gotten kind of thing.
I like
Most
that.
people don't know what that saying is, but it's a good one. I remember I heard that one from your dad. So,
Yes. Who's going to get your goat?
yeah, but only if you have a goat to get.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, my friend. Very good, everybody. Thank you for being here, listening in. Please share the show, pay it forward. We appreciate you doing that. It's how we fulfill what we're up to. And yeah, stay blessed, stay well. David, my friend, always good, man, to be with you. Till next
Love you,
time.
man. I love you.
Yeah, yeah, likewise. Same. Love you too. Bye bye.